Hey guys, so I'm in my car now. I just got out of work and I just read the news that CEO Tim Cook just released a letter to shareholders and investors basically lowering guidance, letting them know that what to expect for their next earnings, for the quarter one earnings, that Apple will be lowering guidance. They expect lower revenues. This is big news, and it's just like, oh my god, I'm sitting there on my phone like, oh my god, and I see the share price, like they had to halt the share price so no one could buy and sell the stock for 10 minutes, so they halted trading. Okay, I'm gonna review this video. I'm gonna make this video when I get home. I'm gonna review everything about the letter, why the stock price is going down, why the share price is going down, and what this means for Apple, the company. This is big news based on their last earnings and now into this earnings. This is big news for Apple's. This is big news based on their last earnings and now this earning and what they're saying. Like, it's just something to think about for shareholders, for investors, and people in regular ETFs like the S&P 500 or other ETFs, like, because Apple is one of the largest companies out there right now. And so it's going to affect a lot of ETFs and a lot of, different funds that are out there. So this basically concerns everyone in the stock market. It's just crazy, everything that's going on. All right, I'm going to get into it right now. All right, hey guys, so I want to get right into it. Crazy day in the stock market today, if you've been following. And so today has been a very smooth sailing type of day after all the volatility, because there's been so much volatility in the market. Like, things are going up, things are popping down, creating new highs, creating new lows, people buying calls, people buying puts, making money, losing money. Like, it's been so volatile. It's very good for day traders. Long-term investors are kind of like, oh my god. But it's been very volatile. Today was very sideways, very, stable, smooth sailing for a while, until market closed at 4 p.m. today, and Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, the company, the largest company in the world, huge amounts of revenue, huge amounts of income, huge amounts of profit, released a statement to shareholders, basically warning them that they're going to revise guidance down based on several factors. And so Tim Cook released that today after market close. Apple stock had shot down about 7%. I think it's down 6 or 7% right now in after hours trading. It's crazy because this stock got hammered after the last earnings call, which I'll provide a little bit of history. And now it's getting hammered again. So it's very interesting to think about what this means for people invested in Apple, actually anybody in the stock market, because this affects all the ETFs. If you have the biggest company out right now posting these results, going down, making downward moves like this, it's going to affect the ETFs, like the S&P 500. Apple is like the top one, so it's going to affect the ETFs. And so basically it affects everyone in the market. If you're invested in the stock market, it affects other, like, all the tech shares are going to drag down. It affects a whole lot of people in the stock market. And so it's something to think about and something to recognize and actually learn about and understand why this is happening. And so I just want to go over why they predict, or why they're revising their revenue guidance downwards. And so they had originally guided for $89 billion to $93 billion. And now they revised guidance to, what was the number? To $84 billion, which is a huge miss. It's a huge miss for Apple. That's, in relative terms, that's a huge one, $84 billion. But you have to understand that what they guided for, and they're saying that they're going to make even less money than they thought based on these factors. And so revenue, they're guiding for a revenue of approximately $84 billion. Gross margin of approximately 38%, which Apple always tries to have gross margin of 40%. So 38%, operating expenses of $8.7 billion, other income expense of $550 million, and a tax rate of approximately 16.5%. And so based on these estimates, our revenue will be lower than our original guidance for the quarter, with other items remaining broadly in line with our guidance. And so it's a couple of weeks before they present their results and have their earnings call. But I guess they wanted to get this out there, and as a way to warn their investors or shareholders or just investors in the stock market. So It's a crazy thing that's happening. And their stock is getting hammered. Like I mentioned before, it got hammered for the first earnings call, and I'll just go over a little bit of history right now. So, in case you want to aware of what happened during the Apple's last earnings call, it was a very huge thing, and the stock took a huge downward move because of these things. And so, basically, it was the point that their revenue had gone up, their ASPs, their average selling price for the iPhones had gone up because they have priced their iPhones even higher than was before. And so those things were going up, but their unit sales for um, the amount of iPhones sold was either stagnant or declined. And so after that point, during the earnings call, they said we're not releasing unit sales anymore because of this change and shift of they're not increasing how many iPhones are sold each quarter. Um, and there was a lot of controversy over that. Like, there was so much controversy. Like, people were saying, like, oh, we want Apple to be more transparent. We want Apple to this. Like, they shouldn't do that. Just release the numbers. What is Apple hiding? This and that. Apple is slowing down. There were so many articles, getting out there, and, like, so many negative articles. And so many people, like, hardly defending Apple. Like, Apple has this much in cash, and they can do whatever. And so there was a lot of controversy, and a lot of people have differing opinions. And so after that, their stock took a downward move after that. And their stock had been bolstered up to like 200 and something share price, and so it got knocked down a lot. And right now, let me check the stock price as of right now. Okay, so as of right now, Apple closed today at $157, and it dropped after Tim Cook released a statement today on January 1st, 2019, dropped 7%, and it's sitting at $146 now. So we'll see what happens when the market opens tomorrow, what the share price will be. But as of right now, it dropped 7% in after hours. And so let's go into the reasons why they revised their guidance downward. And so the first thing that Tim listed was that the differing timing of the iPhone launches. And so he says, we knew the different timing of our iPhone launches would affect our year-over-year compares. Our top models, iPhone XS and iPhone XS Max, shipped in Q4 2018, placing the channel fill and early sales in that quarter, whereas last year iPhone X shipped in Q1 2018, placing the channel fill and early sales in the December quarter. We knew this would create a difficult compare for Q1 2019, and this played out broadly in line with our expectations. And so that was the first reason. Basically, he's saying like the differing timing of the iPhone and when it was released, and that having differing, so that will hamper their revenue a little bit. But that was something that was known. The second thing is the strong US dollar would create foreign exchange headwinds, and forecasted this would reduce our revenue growth by about 200 basis points as compared to the previous year. This also played out broadly in line with our expectations. And so basically what he's saying is like these two things, the differing launch of the iPhones, one, the strong US dollar, those played broadly in line with their expectations. They were expecting those things. Those are headwinds that they were expecting. And so third, we knew we had an unprecedented number of new products to ramp during the quarter, and predicted that supply constraints would gate our sales of certain products during Q1. And so that's, product constraints with the new products they have and everything like that. But I want to get into the last one, which is kind of like the most important. Fourth, we expected economic weakness in some emerging markets. This turned out to have a significantly greater impact than we had projected. In addition, these and other factors resulted in fewer iPhone upgrades than we had anticipated. These last 2 points have led us to reduce our revenue guidance. I'd like to go a bit deeper on both. And so he goes a little bit more into the emerging markets, and he says most of this revenue decline is attributed to a decline in the sales in emerging markets, mainly Greater China. And so while we anticipated some challenges in key emerging markets, we did not foresee the magnitude of the economic deceleration, particularly in Greater China. And so China's economy began to slow in the second half of 2018, and Tim Cook basically thinks that this is a result of the trade war between the US and China. And so there was a slow demand in China due to the slowing emerging market. And so these are kind of like macroeconomic challenges that Tim Cook is pointing to that affects the iPhone sales and revenue in those places. And so that's one thing that he's kind of pointing to. And I guess one thing I took away from this, and he lists some positives. And looking ahead, our profitability, cash flow is strong. He says some good things about the business and how they're going to, progress and overcome adversity and all of this nice stuff in the end. But one thing I got from this is basically that they're having trouble in emerging markets, mainly Greater China. And Tim Cook thinks this because of the trade war that is happening between the US and China. So I guess one thing to think about is, does this pertain only to Apple, the company, or is this a global macroeconomic thing that will affect all US public companies or US companies, basically? So I guess that's one thing that, you gotta think about, because he's saying emerging markets, China's economy is slowing down. It slowed down in the second half of the year. It slowed down in the second half of the year mainly because Tim Cook thinks of the trade war. And so does this affect just Apple? Or is it more, because if this is happening, like a slowing economy in China, shouldn't this affect all stocks, all US stocks, and all, every US company basically? So that's just one thing to think about, or something that I thought about reading this, is what is the impact on Apple and also on the rest of the stocks in the stock market. I feel like this pertains to anybody, any investor in the stock market, any shareholder. Like, if you're investing in the stock market, I'm talking to you. If you're investing in the stock market, like, this pertains to you because this affects everybody. Apple is the largest company. It has so much in cash. It's crazy. Like, they don't know what to do with it. They have just sitting in the bank. So Apple is like the biggest company. They have a very fortress, strong balance sheet. Will this affect the stock? Like, if you're investing in Apple, would you continue to be invested in the stock? Are you selling your shares? Or would you even buy more shares at this point and say that Apple is a good company, even though they are facing these headwinds that Tim Cook has pointed out and that I discussed today? Like, is Apple a good buy today? And, I feel like also not just the Apple like shareholders, but everybody in the market. So if you're holding an ETF, if you're holding like the S&P 500, like SPY or VOO, like, that affects you because Apple's the biggest company. So any move in Apple is going to move those ETFs. And so you have to think about that. If you're holding an ETF, if you're holding Apple, if you're holding any other company, just beware these macroeconomic headwinds that people may mention, or like anything that's happening with Apple that can and will move markets. You know what I'm saying? And so this was crazy news released by Tim Cook at the close of the market today. I'm excited. I don't know. I'm excited for just to see what will happen because I want Apple to do well. I really do. I think they are a great company. And so we'll just have to see what comes up in the next coming days. The next earnings call with their revised guidance. And just see their numbers and kind of assess the business. So when that earnings call does happen, I will make another video of assessing what's happening with Apple. And are they doing good? Are they slowing down? Is Apple still a great buy? So look out for that next video, and I will talk to you guys later.